Hello, Ivy here. Today's podcast is called Let Go of the Toxic People in Your Life Before They Destroy You. Today's episode, number 11, is all about toxic people and toxic environments and the impact on our mental health dealing with this behaviour day in, day out, year in, year out. I have divided the podcast and the article into distinct but interrelated categories and tie all of them directly to the experiences of Harry and Meghan and events that have occurred since 2016. I will discuss the main players involved and, in my opinion, I regard each group mentioned complicit in the activities by their silence of their peers and lack of assistance to the two people on the receiving end of this behaviour. I liken it to various regiments of UK armed forces doubling down on the abuse of two people who did nothing wrong. The only actions that seem to have triggered the commanders-in-chief to instruct their personnel to behave in this way was that the two individuals were competent and clearly outshone the dried-up prunes in their cosplay antics and fake titles. A real offence to the very real magnificent armed forces personnel out there doing a sterling job. When it comes to Meghan, the first and foremost concern for the clear white supremacist royal family is that she is a woman of colour. When you add to that skin colour issue for that family the skill set of competence, academic success, linguistic skills, popular with her colleagues in her profession for over 20 years, and nothing adverse that any of the private investigators who were sent in search of such material could find on her, ensured that this person, who Harry was so proud to introduce to his family, became someone who had to be removed from the family set up by any means. Princess Diana all over again. Let's have a look at toxic work environments. The firm likes to refer itself as the firm when it suits and likens itself to a business. One, we might add, that pays no tax, is exempt from key pieces of employment law, but when it needed to exert its perceived strength about its treatment of its only black member of the family, and who was deemed to not be an employee like all the other working members of the firm, they tried to use employment issues to infer bullying practices. Whilst we are pointing out the firm's pick and mix to being an employer or a family, let's not forget that Meghan was refused basic medical assistance when she asked for help over her suicidal thoughts. Meghan was told she was not an employee, so was not entitled to medical assistance. Basic medical care, which every person in the UK is entitled to free of charge, but Meghan was refused on the basis that she was not employed by the firm, and that it would be embarrassing if she was indeed an employee. I mean, it may just be me here, with my non-legal mind and all that, but as I stated, basic medical care is afforded to all here in the UK, and was there not a small matter of a royal wedding, where the world watched and the UK made billions off this spectacle of an occasion? We know that despite the law clearly agreeing that Meghan was indeed a member of the royal family by marriage, the same royal family made no financial provision for her, and she received no funds for any of the expenses incurred whilst carrying out those same royal duties that other members of the family are stated as doing, on paper at least. Clearly, these people live in an alternate universe. I would be happy, in fact I'd encourage the royal family to take the legal action that their spokespeople were giddy with glee, telling whoever would listen prior to the Oprah interview taking place. Such was their fear or fortune-telling skills, along with a guilty conscience in full overflow, trying to head off criticism of the past before the treatment of Meghan behind palace gates hit the public domain. 5 months later, there is still the odd mention in one of the tabloids, clearly needing a few pennies in their account that day, but the level of noise is much, much lower. From my non-legal brain, I would have much to say in any legal setting on a number of fronts, and I am 100% certain that Meghan would win every one. Every accusation and every deed claimed to have taken place, and the abuse that Meghan has suffered, and the basic human rights violated, all fall within one of two areas. That this institution claims at various points in their fairy tales not to exist or be in place, i.e., being a member of the British royal family, being a senior working royal. It must have been a mirage, all those tours and visits then. Expected by the royal family to be treated during pregnancy by the royal family medical team. Expected to parade outside the Lindo wing with the latest royal baby. Being expected, as part of royal duty, to parade the first baby of colour outside the Lindo wing, and even to give the royal rota first signs of what shade the skin colour would be, in this royal family that Meghan was not deemed to be part of anyway, apart from publicity images, which made the British royal family look good. Secondly, not classed as an employee either. So not entitled to medical assistance for suicidal thoughts, passport and credit cards, car keys, bank cards removed and kept by Human Resources Department. What for? No legal requirement for any employer to retain such documentation. Just photocopies and stamped with the employer stamp and signed and dated that the original of each document has been seen and when. HR does not even need to see copies of such documentation, let alone keep it, for members of the public passing through. Because remember, Meghan was not family. No finance was set up for her. She paid for everything herself. Not a family member either, and her child's birth certificate had her name removed from it, and only the Duchess title left on this important document. An illegal act, by the way, but a way of removing the name of an actual person from their child's birth certificate. Master and slave mentality. HR had frequent conversations with Royal Rota personnel, with whom they shared confidential information about Meghan, including information pertaining to her suicidal thoughts. Royal Rota reporter is on record, visual and audio, admitting to these conversations, so there is no doubt whatsoever about a serious data protection breach, whether that be for an employee or a family member. On the basis that Meghan appeared to be neither family nor employee, then, just like in the case of the altered birth certificate for Archie, she was treated like a royal slave. Where are all these apparent international human rights advocates 5 years down the line? I see no action being taken, and it is well overdue. I don't expect any UK human rights advocate to step forward, because if they were brave enough to come forward, they would have done so already. Everyone knows it would be very difficult for such people to work again in the UK. All I can say to that is there is an army of legal people right now protecting and have protected members of the UK royal family over the decades. So it can be done if they want the coins, but apparently not purely out of principle for abuse being ignored where it is dished out to a non-white victim. UK monarchy and its paid associates are like a set of toxins. Toxins are a poison of plant or animal origin acting as an antigen in the body. Toxins are harmful substances produced within living cells or organisms, harmful in large doses to the human body. The term was first used by organic chemist Ludwig Brieger, derived from the word toxic. In my opinion, the actions of the British monarchy, on who they protect and who they throw under the bus, the word toxic describes them perfectly, and their actions against people who are not Stepford-like in their clone-worshipping style are violated daily by associates acting like royal toxins on once healthy people, who they hope become so ill that they are broken or destroyed. Prepare and protect yourself. One way, as suggested by one of the references sources that I list in the article, is this: document everything you do. Save emails and write down comments and decisions from meetings, phone calls, and every person who interacts with you. If you need to file a complaint, you will need the evidence to back up your claim. Knowing the signs of a toxic workplace and how to handle it will allow you to take your next step on your terms and in your time. Now, let's have a brief look at toxic family members. When is it appropriate to cut ties with a family member? Consider a few examples listed below. There are many more contained in the reference sources. Lying, blaming, criticising, manipulating, invalidating or ignoring your feelings, creating drama or crises, refusing to compromise, yelling, cursing or calling you names, gossiping or speaking ill of you behind your back, making unreasonable demands, playing the victim, refusing to apologise, and if they do, it's shallow, coerced or fake, lacking genuine concern or interest in you and your life, creating so much stress, anxiety and pain that your health, ability to work or general well-being are negatively impacted. Toxic people rarely change. They lack self-awareness and don't take responsibility for their actions. And since they don't see how their behaviour hurts you, they refuse to change. Instead, they blame you and expect you to cater to their demands. It is not wrong or mean to protect your well-being, and sometimes the only way to do this is by distancing yourself from toxic people. The bottom line is that for many people, the only way to heal is to remove yourself from the abusive relationship. How can you heal if you continue to be abused? Please note that this point applies equally to the UK royal family, for Harry and Meghan, as a married woman into that family, despite the tricks played ignoring that fact, the UK media, working in hand with the British royal family and therefore complicit, and individually liable for any harm that is identified in any future litigation if things progress to that stage, for individual acts of abusive behaviour and trying to hide behind they were just doing their job, etc. Toxic people are dangerous. Dangerous to our inner peace. The trick is to identify them and detach them from your journey to happiness. Toxic people thrive on drama. It gets them sympathy and it gets them attention. It allows them to manipulate the emotions of the people around them. A person whose psyche is defined by negative things in their life will only attract more negativity into yours. This following paragraph is an extract from medium.com, listed in the reference material in the article, and applies to both sets of families mentioned in this piece. Can you identify at least one from each side of the Sussex's families? I can. This behaviour is often learned in childhood, when their baseline is formed through experiences that teach, or fail to teach, them the empathy that is so basic to our positive developments as human beings. As they grow, they miss out on all the great aspects of respect, compassion and kindness. Their hearts harden, and their attitudes grow icy, and they become unable to look past their own needs and wants. Individuals who are toxic are most often broken people, who look for the kind, open people with the beautiful and transformation hearts they wish that they had. When you think of the clout chasers, including the carnival of so-called experts, aka clowns, and the unknown children's authors who felt the need to come out from under their stones, and the clout chasers who were taken from their mausoleums to face cameras and spout nonsense, and let us not ever forget the ever-growing obsolescence of the royal rota. They are attached to the royal womb like embryos, and as the monarchy falls in popularity and the questions increase relating to the need for one in a modern society, the same questions will and are being asked about the royal rota. Any person seen to potentially rock that gravy train of income and lifestyle for these adult embryos, or take away perceived income from the otherwise unsold children's authors out there, some have shown their true colours. I am waiting for all their bestsellers to appear now that Meghan has moved on to another one of her many projects lined up. All of these people, groups, are very much like toxic organisms. Toxicity and the impact on your mental health. Toxic people are dangerous to our inner peace, and they are dangerous to our self-esteem. The secret to growth is learning how to identify them and detach them from our journey to happiness. Toxic people take the joy out of work and holidays. Toxic people thrive on drama. It gives them sympathy and it gets them attention. Best of all, it allows them to manipulate the emotions of the people around them. A person who is identified by negative things in their life will only attract more negativity into yours. Toxic people are obsessed with themselves and think only of their own feelings and opinions, showing little or no concern for others. They have a need to be the centre of attention and have control over the people and situations that surround them. For example, a self-centred family member might demand that you babysit their children for free, while a self-centred boss might demand that you work late, regardless of whether or not you may have plans of your own with your own nuclear family. Toxic people deliberately mislead when it comes to telling the truth, and are toxic to our inner peace and mental well-being. They make it impossible for us to trust anything that they say. Someone who is comfortable with telling small lies and equally at ease with telling big ones too. They will obscure and even reinvent the truth to conceal their flaws and mistakes. Have you ever known someone who has an obsessive need to be right all the time? Being seen as wrong by anyone is like a rejection to them and cannot be tolerated at any cost. These people will argue their point of view until they are blue in the face or buried in the ground. I can think of many examples from all the groups who have been toxic towards the Sussexes, and in particular Meghan. If any of them are challenged about their version of the truth, they double down on their story, and their rage is evident for all to see. They can dish it out, as they say, but they cannot ever take being challenged. I am sure you all can think of a few. Seems to be a common trait with all the known toxic individuals and groups who have abused Sussexes over or during the 5-year period. And some are continuing it now, even though they are on USA soil. I personally will never stop raising the flag of this injustice with the people and organisations who I believe should know, and are certainly in a better position than I am, of becoming forces for change in the seats of power. I am doing my bit of being a force for change in the sphere of people who have influence and access to far more doors than I will ever walk by, never mind enter. Everyone is a seed for growth somewhere. We just need to find the right spots to plant ourselves and bloom. Those people who are constantly stuck in a negative loop rarely have a kind word to say about others. Most rational people know that there is a mixture of good and bad in people, but toxic people do not view people in that way. It would force them to look deeply at themselves and their approach to life. Toxic people in our own lives can sometimes be hard to spot, i.e., they can be vile to others, but not so evident to family or close friends. Observe the relationships of the people in your life, and you might just be surprised to realise some motivations you never noticed before. People who cannot take responsibility for their actions are toxic to our personal evolution and corrosive to our well-being. Toxic people thrive on their ability to control the people and circumstances in their life. It is not a helpful or loving form of control. I think of the section in the Me You Can't See docuseries when Harry spoke about waking up to hear Meghan crying in the night. To this day, I feel hidden tears fall from my soul when I listen to the emotion in his voice, speaking about the love of his life being impacted by his family and their associates in the media doing their bidding. Truly heartbreaking footage and very, very powerful. I could write so much more, but that is for a possible future publication, or maybe just one for my children to read of the emotional cycles experienced during many decades on this planet. This quote is from one of the reference sources that I think is very apt for this podcast. Emotional and physical abuse, criticism, lying, and emotional starvation are all signs it's time to leave someone behind. If you spend your nights lying in loneliness or quiet heartbreak, it is a sign that things have run their course and come to a natural end. I would say that this statement applies to leaving a situation behind, not just an individual, whether that be a workplace or a toxic family environment, or even living near to someone who does not recognise boundaries and who interrupts your peace because they can. I remember something that Megan said during an interview on the South African tour, where she stated that it was not enough just to survive, but it is important to thrive too. Another quote: "Life is not meant to be lived in misery. It is meant to be lived in celebration. As humans, we each have our individual needs, and we have a right to have those needs met. When we don't thrive, we stifle the nature that makes us who we are and guides on this path that we call life. Leaving can be hard, but life is lived through connection, not commiseration. When you are starved for intimacy, connection, friendship, or kindness, it is time to detach and start living a life filled with beauty and love elsewhere. Accepting your worth will make it easier to walk away from toxic people. It can be done by keeping a few home truths in mind as we separate ourselves from their negativity. Don't wait for an apology. It is not coming. Understand that it is okay to walk away. Focus on healthy relationships instead. Phase out contact. Stop making excuses for toxic people. Make your last encounter a brief one. Give yourself a deadline. Allow yourself to be heartbroken. Sometimes choosing health and wholeness means cutting out the people who are cancerous to our growth. I'm going to end the podcast here, and what I would say to all of you is take care of yourself. The article is quite long. Again, I apologise, I'm sorry. There are over 20 reference source details listed at the end. I easily could have doubled that, but I think the 20 plus that are there are a good starting point, whether you go through all of them or some of them. I think you will find them very helpful. In the article itself, there are a number of images, statements around leaving a toxic environment, whether that be family members or work, how to create boundaries, and just the emotions that one goes through when you are cutting off contact. So again, that's part of the reason why it's a lot longer, because there are quite a few images this time, but each image has got a message on it. I hope you found that useful, because to do it in half an hour, you really are just touching the surface. But I wanted to really support Harry and Meghan walking away, because even the few things I've mentioned in the podcast, and you'll see more in the article, they will have countered that and so much more. And they would have reached a stage where they decided enough was enough. that it was not enough just to survive. They needed to thrive. And boy, how are they thriving now? So, the references that are listed are in categories. They cover toxic work environments. They look and cover toxic family members and how to create boundaries and the impact of cutting off toxic family members. And then the last section is around toxic environments and the impact on mental health. I hope you have found this of use, albeit a very, very much of a helicopter view of this issue, but I'm hoping it starts conversations. I'm hoping it gets you to read a little bit more on the topic, and more than anything, I hope you find it useful. So speak to you soon. Bye for now from Ivy. Bye.